Everybody wants to be loved, nobody wants to be hated. Love and appreciation are the ultimate everlasting human desires. And that being the case, why hatred is easily widespread while love is so scarce? How hatred could take its place throughout the history of existence? Why is it easier to prefer hate? Why are we so damn obsessed with planting the seeds of hate despite its unblessed outcomes? Well, there's no one sentence quick answer for all of that, but we will cover them from every possible angle. Hate has existed since the first human being joined the game of life. It's mentioned in all holy books, mainly the Bible, Torah and Quran. Besides that, there are records of hate in the sources of Mesopotamian civilizations. For example, the story of Cain and Abel is the most famous one. Cain in the Old Testament was the firstborn son of Adam and Eve, and Abel was their second one. They both grew up and acquired a profession in life. Cain became a farmer and his brother Abel was a shepherd. One day Cain offered the yields as a gift to the Lord while Abel presented his fatty and well-fed animals. In some records, it's mentioned as God doesn't even look at Cain's gift because it was chosen negligently. Cain became enraged when God accepted the offering of his brother in preference to his own. So the jealousy, as one of the basic human instincts, found its place to grow. Cain's hate led him to murder his brother and he was banished by the Lord from the settled country. So the hate has always been with us. We haven't possessed it in the course of time due to changes in external factors. Hate is everywhere, despite getting us nowhere. The examples are excessively seen in social media, sports matches, social events, debates, and comment sections. Unless you're stuck in a cave for decades, then you see the hate is always in the air on these platforms. People can easily get triggered by anything and let the negativity control their behavior. Every place can easily turn into a possible combat area. Just because someone has a different idea, thinks differently, or chooses a different color, we have the right to see them as our deadly enemies. It might start from trivial reasons, but things even come to a point where we end up killing each other. Can you imagine the absurdity of this human behavior? Our love also can easily turn into hate. It's rare to see married couples anymore because they all get divorced for some reason or struggle desperately to make it through. You remember them as happy and lovely couples, but they turn into such horrible individuals right after the process of divorcement. These people used to sleep in the same bed, dream about common goals, and share lots of good memories, but they suddenly decide to do all kinds of harm to each other as they were long-standing rivals. This is the most obvious proof of that our loves are interest-oriented. We love the expectancy with the idea of having some return from the people we show love to. When our expectations aren't met, the hate fills the gaps of love. As Lev Tolstoy said, and where love ends, hate begins. So let's firstly make it clear that evil is part of our character. Hate and all the other negative emotions are deeply wired into our being with a strong ancient background. Secondly, it's easy to enter the darkness of hate when we are inclined to it. As Grand Jedi Master Yoda said in Star Wars, once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Consume you it will. The dark side is like an addictive drug. Once you're hooked, it would be very hard to leave it behind. It's impossible to generate positive results through hatred because there is no positivity acquired by harvesting the seeds of hate. Negativity only empowers its allies. It might be relieving, alluring and promising at that time, but the results are always against our favor. So although it does such a disservice to us, why is it evil so sexy and so profoundly glamorous? Yes, virtue is admired, but its vice we find sexy. Terry Eagleton explains this as, evil becomes sexy when virtue becomes boring. We fall into the trap of believing that virtue is worthless as it's not something we need to get good at. So doing evil things become alluring in a delusional, satisfying world. Screw it, virtue doesn't help you to make more money. Don't do any good because people will abuse it. People are all bad and they don't deserve any good. Are these beliefs actually true? No, at least they weren't for a very long time. We did not start the label being virtuous as boring and useless all of a sudden. Back then virtue was about prudence, thrift, chastity, temperance. Today nobody is eager to be good in that way. And this is the moment where evil becomes so alluring. One of the best theologues of ancient Greek, Aristotle said, virtue makes us aim at the right end. Thomas Aquinas described being good as an exciting and exuberant way of expressing energy for our personal growth, while evil was all about deprivation, negativity, nothingness and inability to be fully alive for him. While virtue was considered as the ultimate way of flourishing, evil was something that looks flashy but it's actually phony, empty and boring without any depth. According to Aquinas, life is good in a neutral state without any external intervention, so it's good that water flows, birds fly and dogs run around. The demonic force is against the creation and its whole aim is to reverse the creation back to chaos. So the evil side always wants to demolish, destruct and tear everything down as an anti-creational force. Its final destination is always an absolute nothingness or nihilism. Why? This is the strange part. The demonic force doesn't need a reason. It just does it for the hell of it. So the game of life and our wars continue on. Hate opens the doors of violence. Hate cannot be isolated in itself because it's a phenomenon that can be the fuel of other destructive events. We don't hate for the sake of being hateful. We also have negative hopes and wishes for the ones we hate, like, I hate you, I hope you die in a shithole. So violence doesn't come up as violence right away, it goes through a developing process. For instance, the violence in the family happens due to the lack of love. Later, lovelessness turns into hate, and lastly, we see its manifestation in violent behaviors. Hate can also be learned. There are certain things in life that we cannot choose, that we are born to it. For example, our skin color, our body, our race, our geography, etc. However, lots of people have been tyrannized for the things they could not choose in history. One of them was Nelson Mandela, who was the first black president of South Africa. He said, no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. We also learn who should we hate or love from our environment. The authority figures in our lives have the most effect on our worldview. They are Muslims, infidels, black people, Asians, Christians, and here we are the statues of purity. Stay away from those people because they have done this and that in the past. Every culture has its own toxic doctrines that exaggerate their domestic values and demonize others. The seeds of discrimination and separation are planted in this way. If we are not cautious, we can easily let the hate grow inside us. Hate finds its spot in the absence of love. Hate and happiness cannot exist in the same room at the same time. It's too hard to carry hate in your heart when your soul is filled with love. However, if you're broken inside, you make sure the world pays the price as well. So feeling hatred towards others is not about others. It's about how we perceive what's happening as a result of our internal war. We often neglect to consider our part in hate. We even forget that it's a choice that will hurt us before anybody else. It's hard to grasp its negative effect because when you hate someone, your focus is on them. However, when you point a finger at someone, there are 3 more pointing back at you. So if you're possessed by hate, you should know that it's 100% personal issue. Why the most successful people have the most haters? A healthy individual would look up and get inspired by others' success, but some people simply can't. Why? Because wrecked souls are out of control and they get triggered to see other people reaching success. Hate is comforting but sickening place where they escape from the unbearable pain of their shitty life. Negativity is also a great source for media because people love watching terrible things, so people get relieved by thinking like, yeah, I'm going through bad stuff, but thanks God there are others suffering more than me. Just like this mentality, people try to feel better for a moment by spreading their hate everywhere possible. They do not want to own your fortune, they want you to lose it. They do not want to succeed, they want you to fail. They do not want to live, they want you to die. They desire nothing, they hate existence, and they keep running, each trying not to learn that the object of his hatred is himself. A quote by Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. The internet age obviously made it more available to spread hatred. A big part of the masses are not happy with their life, moreover they are mostly sick of it. Nobody knows your identity, so it's less risky to cross the social lines. You can curse as much as you like, talk all the dirt, find scapegoats to alleviate your own pain. We don't give weapons to the hand of mentally sick people, but online platforms are open to anybody. And corrupt people will make use of any development to amplify corruption. It's crazy how ferociously they try to bring others down through hateful comments. By spreading their negative vibe, sick people forget their sickness for a second, and they shift their focus on somebody else to get relief of tearing down. Strangely, they reflect their own insecurities in their destructive criticism. For example, if people ever try to ridicule you for how you look, it's because of their insecurities about their own appearance. Or they just can't argue with you on a rational level and all they can do is to insult in some way. Their method sucks, but this is the only way they know. They lost their common sense and rational thinking ability due to growing up in loveless environment. Hate can lead to self-destruction. Hate also tests sweet, especially when it makes you belong to a certain community. You become a part of the majority through hating minorities. The insidious danger in collectivist thinking lies behind the mentality of only group matters. So it loses its meaning and turns into a means for the sake of conformity. It doesn't matter why we hate as long as it provides social benefits. This certainly annihilates the integrity of the individual. However, the damage still remains the same regardless of how we use hate. Cain was filled with hatred because he deeply knew he lost the chance in his hand. He realized that he squandered what was once within his reach. Abel deserved to be God's favorite by doing things right, and his success shined like a missed opportunity for Cain. It was easier to destroy Abel out of vengeance than correcting his wrongdoing. The right path requires sacrificing yourself by deconstructing your character. In other words, you must let your miserable self die for a better one to be born. You have to sacrifice your ego and let it die for purification. It feels wrong and too much of a burden at that time because nobody wants to die willingly by default. So Cain could not triumph over his animalistic desire and get beaten by the temptation that results in murder. None of us are saints. We all have a terrible capacity for destructiveness. It looks like a negative situation, but the ability to be destructive is also proof of a potential constructive force which we can also use for the good. Suffering is inevitable in life, so we gotta pick our sacrifice wisely to make our life better. If you just let yourself live a miserable life and suffer stupidly, you will eventually get bitter just like Cain did. It doesn't matter how smart or talented you are as long as you're not capable of using them in your own favor. At the end of the day, people never would love to live with the regret of knowing that they could have done more. And hatred and resentment towards the world and others will never cure the pain of regret. The pain might elevate for a while, but it's not possible to get positive or beneficial outcomes from hate. It will only grow like a virulent poison inside you and eventually consume what you all have as long as you feed it. Yes, hate existed since the beginning of creation, and it's an emotion that we can't entirely detach ourselves, but this never justifies our surrender. Regardless of circumstances, our soul is always in our keeping alone. This is an eternal struggle, a war within, that will continue to exist forever. Blaming others will not suffice or bring us closer to salvation.